Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Adele Ashley, and I'm so excited to go through my January to June 2024 journal with you. This book it's kind of thick now, which, if you remember, was actually my goal at the beginning of the year. I wanted my journal to end up being like as thick as possible. I wanted it to kind of have everything in it, and for 2024 it's actually the first year that I made the decision to split my journal into two. So usually my bullet journals for the year, for 2023 it was one book, and I definitely didn't use all the pages in it. So going into this year, my goal was to first have two journals, one for January to June and another one for July to December. And second, to kind of expand what my spreads were. I didn't want them to be just kind of this like 1-page or 5-page spread for the entire month. I was like, you know what, you're going to put a lot more into it, put a lot more into the setup of it, and really just kind of challenge myself to do more, if that makes sense. So I did end up using almost every page. I think there was like maybe 4 pages at the back of the book that I didn't use. So I'll take it. January through June, all in one book. So, and it's nice and thick as well. So to start off with, I did use the Lushturn 1917. It is 120G paper, and then I did pay a little bit extra to get the book embossed with just my name, the dates that it's covering, and the year. And I think I really like the Lushturn 1917 bullet journals, so I think I actually might continue doing that in future years. I opted for black this year, just kind of plain boring black, you could call it, but I actually really like it. And then for my first page in the book, the first page that I actually wrote on, because I don't really write in these like content pages and stuff like that. I never really think to go back, even though sometimes I think maybe I should. But I created with that first page in the book that's just like plain paper on one side and bullet journal paper on another. I just created a title page that says 2024. It was easy. I know some people put like their name and stuff like that, but for me it made most sense just to put the year. Welcome to 2024. And what you're gonna notice is that part of my setup theme, as I set up for like the first half of the year, is a lot of gold in it. So I actually got this white and gold flecked paper from a nearby paper store, the same where that I get Chiogami plate paper from, if you have seen some of my other setups. And then this is just gold like heavyweight cardstock that I got from the same place as well. So I just kind of cut out the letters and stuff like that. And then you go into my first kind of page that I've made. So I have my pockets. I have one on this side and then also one on the other side of the page. And I just made these by like kind of cutting the page in half and gluing it to like the middle page in the middle there. But I knew that I wanted pockets in my book just to kind of hold the things that I use all the time. So the first one that I'm always using in my spreads and in my setup and when I'm like planning them out is actually my like grid spacer guide, which is basically just like a spare sheet of paper that I cut. The side has 1 to 26 on it, just so it's measuring like the top of a page, essentially, and all the dots there. This one's 1 to 37 for the length of a page, and essentially it lets me know like if I want to divide it in two, this is where I need to put it. If I need to divide it in like into 7, so if I'm doing like a weekly spread, so Monday through Friday, like this is how my 7s have to be broken down. If I have 5, etc. It's really helpful. Sometimes just to look at a glance, I can just plop it down and I know where I have to put it, as opposed to having to like actually count out like 5 boxes or do some math. So that always stays at the front here, and it's actually this, I actually created this for my 2023 what I want to say. So this is essentially just like travels from journal to journal. Right now it's currently in my July to December one, but I just popped it in there so you guys could see. And same with these ones, these little fun things. So I keep these in my front of my journal as well for me to refer back to. My first one is my book ratings. I originally started with just this one that had just a reminder for my book tracker spread, what color I was using to color each like rating of a book. So I know a 3-star, I have to use the fuchsia mild liner is what I'm using, whereas the 5 stars are summer green. Just because I have a ton of mild liners and they all kind of look the same at a glance. And then I realized kind of early on that I wanted to have my book ratings as well. So I'm following the Copile system for book ratings. And I have this like fully written out in my book journal, but then I quickly realized that it made no sense for me to constantly like pulling out my book journal, or I didn't always have my book journal with me when I was looking to update my reading spread, because I tend to do it like I finish a book and I'll update it later that day, and sometimes my book journal wouldn't be with me. So it made the most sense for me to create another kind of tracker spread, so that when I am trying to figure out what my book rating is and my rating, it's just right there and easy for me. I also have a box template, so I use this a lot when I'm planning out my spreads. So you guys wouldn't see me using it because I usually have it planned out before I actually ink it. But I have a box cut out for 5 weeks as well as for 6 weeks. Essentially, this is, I know that if I have a month that has, I'm making a calendar that needs 5 weeks, this is kind of where it is. And then if this is a 6-week calendar as well, 7 days across. Then I have my key. So for you'll see that I do a lot of color coding in my agenda, and really it's, I know that like something that's really simple and admin and life kind of things would get a blue, I usually write in blue ink, in a specific pen. Appointments are always purple. Social, so if I am going out with friends, a book club meeting, stuff like that, is in my light pink. Workouts are always red. It's just like at a glance I could flip and I know what I'm looking for. But I especially like color code my journal, so you will see that a little bit. Green is always work because money, but yeah, things like that. And then with these, I did actually use Chiyogami paper a lot in my setup. So the pockets are just covered in the Chiyogami paper. I essentially just like glued it onto the page that I cut. And then same thing here, I had some leftovers and I used it on the front and back of my key pages. So they're just there. I could reference them, like, you know, ratings, they all match. They could pop in or whatever, but I just didn't want it just to be a sheet of paper. It also kind of like bumped up the paper a little bit. So for example, like these are with the 120G paper that I just had left over from the top of the book. So it is kind of already like a little bit thicker and sturdy, but I did find that adding the Chiyogami on the back gave it like just a little bit more kind of weight to it, but it also made it look pretty. So, and who does not want their stuff to look pretty? And then my second pocket, I don't have anything in it now, but I essentially use it for things that I might want to pop in. If someone gives me a business card, things that I want to remember for later on, that's kind of relevant in the moment. I always have my bullet journal on me most of the time, so this is a great place for me to kind of like stuff all that little ephemera and stuff that I pick up. Then I have my 2024 themes. So for the year, I really wanted to focus on 12 different things, or use them as like a theme for the year. So, you know, like really wanted to make sure I took moments to take care of myself, develop a mindfulness pattern, practice, you know, don't be scared to discover myself, don't be scared to go on an adventure. Just like really simple things that I just wanted to keep in mind as I went through the year, and to make sure that I still like had fun. And then I had my future log. And looking back at this, I think there's so many, it's so interesting to see how even over like 6 months, I have evolved and changed a little. Like I said, this was the first journal that I really like challenged myself to do more in. So, you know, before my logs were super easy, like it was all just kind of like, it was simple, it was easy. And for this one, I made a really concerted effort to do more. So looking at it like this, the corner here with my future log where the paper is underneath the washi, like I don't love it in hindsight, but that's okay, I guess. But getting to the future log, I do have my, I got this stamp. It's like this Midori calendar stamp. I picked it up early last year and I really, really liked the idea of it because essentially you can color over top of it. So it is an oil-based stamp, which means that you could then use, like it goes on, it dries, and then you could use like a mild liner or markers, coloring pencils and stuff over top of it, so it doesn't actually like smudge or anything like that. So yeah, so I decided to use that for my future log. You know, you have the 12 months at the top, and it does allow me to like color in what each month is. So I really liked the idea of using that for my future log. It also saved me having to like write out some of the month, I guess you could say. Future logs, when they're setting up, they're very intense, I find, on my hands, just writing like a full calendar for an entire year, like 365 days and all the days of the week and counting and everything. I do find with my future log, it's kind of funny. I tend to be like really into it sometimes and like actually putting stuff down. And then there's times where like I don't put anything down. And I did make a concerted effort in this future log to make sure that I included the entire year, which is why you see like January through April, May to August, and then September to December, knowing that I most likely would not be using, unless something like definitely came up for like November, December, I probably wouldn't be using it. And then I did kind of, I won't lie, I kind of stopped updating this. It's kind of funny because I have like May, I have Mother's Day and Victoria Day in Canada, but in December I never put in like Christmas or New Year's Eve, or Halloween, Thanksgiving, like all of those stuff I never actually went and like populated them in. But it's really good for January through April, you could say. So I don't know what that says about me, but definitely had it half updated. That being said, I don't think I'd ever like take a future log out of my bullet journals because I do actually, it is nice to have when I do use it. And then I got into the section that I called like serious things. And what I was saying earlier about how I'm seeing how like my like tastes or like my creativity has evolved a little bit. Looking back at this, like I don't love this blank page right here. I think I should have had like the paper across both pages. And I also don't really love how this is just like a rectangle that I cut out and like essentially just pasted on top to say serious things. I do still like the gold accent. I just think I would see if I could find a way to get it like tucked in a little bit into the paper so that it's like it's like slotted in, if that makes sense. But we'll see. Maybe I'll use that idea in a future spread if I use Chiyogami again. And then I got into my goals. So I had a 3 month, 6 month, 1 year on the back, and big and scary goals for 2024. Admittedly, I did not accomplish many of these goals this year, and I'm like not even mad about it. Like the first half of the year was rough. A lot of things were going on, and you know, I think like in my personal life, I was like, oh, you're gonna do 8 spin classes a month. You're paying for this membership. You can do 8 a month at a minimum. And I can genuinely tell you that I think there was a month where I think I made it to like 4 classes. It just didn't happen for me. And looking back, I really have to give myself grace because I was sick in January. I had a respiratory thing in February. I was sick again I started recovering from that respiratory thing. And just when I thought I was like getting better, I got hit with this like cold from hell. That was like so bad. I was drinking like cough syrup. Like it was juice, it felt like I was so sick. So 8 spin classes per month weren't really happening because I couldn't breathe. And then as part of that, like I wasn't necessarily going to yoga, Pilates either because I was asleep because I couldn't breathe. So, you know, that didn't happen. I do know that I wanted to hit 100 subscribers on YouTube in the first 3 months, and that happened as well. I didn't get a post up every Wednesday or Sunday, but we're still working on that. Same thing with my 6 month goals. Some of them got kind of like delayed or pushed forward, so they're not like not happening, but they're still there. And I don't know, I think this year I looked at goals a little bit more as a little bit more fluid. Like it was kind of like nice to have. I kind of wanted to accomplish some things, but I also knew that there was a lot going on behind the scenes that might potentially make some of these unattainable in the short term, but like nothing bad. So I'm not too like torn that I didn't like accomplish my goals or didn't hit my goals. Lots of grace there for that. Same thing with my finance goals. I knew that I wanted to, or at least I thought I wanted to dump a lot of money into my TFSA and emergency fund and stuff like that, and came to the realization that that is not where I am right now. I don't want to be dumping money into that just because of the way things are going. That's not to say in the next few months that I don't change my mind and just kind of like max these out all of a sudden, but very short term it was just not happening there. I did say for 3 months I wanted to pay off my credit cards. I did do that, but then 6 months, 1 year, 5 year finance goals, didn't think of them. Or I should say I thought of them, I didn't write them down. I do know my lifestyle goal is like, you know, I just want to be a rich bitch. So there's that. But in terms of like, especially the 6 month and 1 year goals, I know what they are, but I also know that I have some things happening with money behind the scenes that is going to very clearly affect things like these goals as well as these goals, and how I invest and max those out very quickly. And then for sinking funds, I didn't really refer back to this page this year, which is so weird because I usually do. But essentially horseback riding lessons, I did put this one on pause. I paid my early in January. I was actually supposed to be starting classes in May of 2024, and in January of 2024 I paid my deposit for the class, and then they quickly let me know that there was just some like scheduling mix-ups, and I actually had to push it back to a class starting in September. So I kind of put that on pause for a bit, saving for that, just like the remaining $800 that I needed. And then I also made the decision that I actually wouldn't be able to do classes in September, so I have pushed it back into 2025 for me to sign up for lessons. So this is not like an immediate thing that I am saving for sinking funds. I'll still like kind of put money in it as I think about it, but it is something that's like 6-7 months down the line, and I'll be saving for it a little bit closer to the end of the year. Same thing with like things like a MacBook, iPad. I do need to replace my computer and get a new one. I am debating between like a Mac Mini or getting a MacBook. It's like totally up in the air about what exactly I get. But I do know that it's about $2,400 that I'm looking to invest in that, and that is something that I know that I could save for rather rapidly, which is why I haven't touched it. Christmas, I'm gonna start working on that soon, and then miscellaneous shopping is just kind of like there. And then my 2024 subs, I did manage to, I actually maxed them all out, like saved some money for them very quickly, just kind of like soon after I actually set up my spread at the beginning of January. I just like dumped the total into my savings account for it. Just because I received some money over Christmas and stuff like that and figured that's where it would go. So I'm actually thinking about my 2025 subscriptions at this point in time. So Amazon has already paid for 2025, like my Prime membership and stuff like that. I still need to save for Kindle, Netflix a little bit, Epidemic Sound, and Windows, and kind of everything else. But essentially, like, I dump my money into sinking funds so that I know that I have the money to like continue paying for stuff, even if like I were to lose my job, God forbid, or something else. And then I have my very fun 1 year to 1K spread, where essentially I just pick a block each week and deposit that amount into savings. So by the end of the year, I'll have saved $1,000. This is just like a fun saving goal thing that I do every single year. There's no like rhyme or reason behind it. It's just, I probably have $4 of extra change that maybe I could just like dump 1 week. And then I got into what I called the fun stuff. So, you know, that Chiogami paper again. And essentially this was just anything that wasn't really too serious. Like, you know, I want to save money or these are my goals. But this was the first spread that I had was my things to check out. So I really focused on like media, experiences, and places. Media, self-explanatory, like TV, movies, podcasts, stuff like that. I don't include books on this list because that would be a lot. But things like, hey, you know, I want to really listen to the Sweet Bobby podcast, or I'm going to watch this TV show that I'm like kind of interested in. So like Anyone But You was on there. As well, I had Outer Banks, which I rewatched, Evil, things like that. Experiences, this is anything that's like cool in Toronto or the surrounding area that I think I would like to check out. So, you know, I have stuff like a helicopter tour on here and see an edge walk. Admittedly, as someone who is scared of heights and roller coasters, I don't know why I am interested in the CN Edge walk. But then I also have things like, oh, I want to go to Ultra Wellness or Othership. I want to try a calligraphy workshop, stuff like that. And then for places, I have places is mainly food for me, admittedly, but it's like all the different restaurants that I want to try, like Clooney's or Alouette. And to be very clear, these are like places that I want to sit in and eat. Is when I check it off, because like Lakeview Diner, I have ordered food from there before and had it delivered, but it's not checked off because I have not eaten physically in Lakeview Diner. But yeah, it's a really easy thing for me to pull out and plan out where I want to go. For example, for my birthday this year, I was like, I want to go to Alouette. It's on my list. Let's cross it off. And then I got into my book tracker spread. So for the year, I wanted to read 100 books. I set my goal as 100 every single year. Some years I hit it, some years I don't. It's a really like, honestly, it's kind of like really no pressure for me. But essentially I have my colors for the entire year. You guys saw my rating grid, or my rating guide, a little bit earlier, but I decided to still include it here even though I have my book journal, because it was a really nice way for me to like visually see very quickly how many books that I've read. I also only really like update my book journal at the end of the month, so it's super easy for me to read a bunch of books and then kind of like almost forget about them or forget to include it in the journal, or forget what my rating was for them, as opposed to like just updating it here in the moment. Like every evening, if I finish a book, I could just like go and color it in really quickly. It's super easy for me to remember. So that's kind of like what I like about still having it here. It's also like, I kind of joke that this book is my life, so it's a really easy way for me to like flip back and be like, this is where we're at. And then we have my quotes and affirmations to remember, which as you can see, I chose to remember none. So this page was new to this journal, and then it quickly got scrapped when I moved everything into my July book because evidently I'm not using it. And same thing with the Future Me spread, which I thought was a really great idea, but is clearly just not for me. Future Me problems, clearly one of them is actually filling out the spread. Essentially this was supposed to be like a running list of things that pop into my head that I want to do, like organize the pantry or sort through my cloud storage, like clear out my closet, stuff like that, that I would write here and I could just refer back to like tackle one by one. Clearly it's not getting used at all. So yeah. And then I had my favorite spread of my journals. It is pretty much every year my favorite spread. I love looking back on it. But my year in pictures. So this one, because it's only January through June in this book, I only focused on January through June for my year in pictures. And I found this quote, which I think really like summarized what I want my year in pictures to be. And it really is just like document the moments you feel most in love with yourself, what you're wearing, who you're around, and what you're doing. Recreate and repeat. So I have this here. And then essentially I just printed out Polaroid pictures for each one. So for example, like in January, I had the opportunity to try Alouette. And I have a picture of the lemon meringue pie that is like so good. I also have like my trip to Bakery Pompette, which I was so excited to go to and I need to go back to as well. But I went to bakery as I was leaving home to go to Bakery Pompette. I actually was bit by a dog, and my very much beloved red Super Puff got ripped as the dog bit me. Bakery Pompette was so good, but I was also so devastated in the moment because my jacket was gone. And it's fine, it was replaced for me. The owner like immediately was like, oh my god, it's a Super Puff, like I will replace that jacket for you immediately. So it's all good. And then I volunteered with a cat rescue. And in February, I had my first adoption happen. So this is George. He was this sweet little cuddly tabby who found his forever home on February 12th. I was so happy for him. It was so great to see. There's also like the bottle of wine that I tried out at this wine shop I always wanted to go to. The Idea of You, advanced screening that I went to go see. And if anyone knows me, like I love The Idea of You. Like that book sticks out, like it lives rent-free essentially in my head. So I got to see an advanced screening of it a few weeks before it came out at the TIFF Lightbox, and I really enjoyed it. I did find it a little bit different than the books, but that's okay. March, you know, I was focused on doing more with my day. So, you know, grabbing coffee and breakfast before an errand at work makes sense. In May, I had a video that hit like 11,000 views and counting, like very fast. Like I posted it and it just kind of like skyrocketed. Yeah, so I included that here because I was like, what is this? It was such a weird moment for me. And then the store that I work at, our location closed, and we moved to a new one. So just a picture of our back wall. We all like wrote stuff on it. So I just kind of took a picture of that there. And then my June picture, my last June picture, I actually haven't printed yet. I ran out of Polaroids and I am just waiting to get like the new one delivered to me and to update it, but I will be doing that shortly. And then after that, I started getting into like kind of like a quarterly setup. So for Q1, I always wanted to have like a reading list and a bucket list of things to do. So for my winter reading list, I had 6 books that were coming out in January through March that I was really excited to have come out and wanted to read. I did read 4 out of the 6 of them, so not bad. And then I had my winter bucket list where I did manage to accomplish quite a few of them. I do have to question my decision to use these like flowers here. These are the only time I've used them, and I'm like, it's just kind of random. And then again, the same thing was like this paper here, this cutout. I'm not 100% loving it. I would do it differently in future spreads for sure. If I were to recreate the spread, but I just had, because it was winter and I was doing things in Toronto, I just have a very winter picture of Toronto here that I took, with the CN Tower and everything on a winter day. There's snow, you know, it's there. Then I have my Q1 content page, which I really enjoy doing, just kind of like a focus, things that I'm planning on posting, stuff like that. And then I also have a content idea spread. So I actually use this, is for YouTube and social. And as you can see, these 2 pages are full, but I also use it for, have 2 blank pages at the end, essentially so that if I were to, like, it's overflow. So I'm, in my mind, it's 4 pages of things that you could write down. I did put this very close to the front of the book. So right after my quarterly stuff. Just be in my Q1 content, just because I like it to have, I'm able to like refer back to it later on in the year, and I know exactly where it is, so I could be like, oh, like I need to do, I don't know what to post, or I'm looking for an idea. Like I could flip back and be like, oh, you know what, you wanted to do that is an idea that you had that I don't necessarily have plugged in yet, so that's there. And then this is where I started planning out the podcast. I started doing it in January. The podcast is still coming. I've just pushed it back to an October start, but just like general notes that I had. Like here you can see I'm planning out like Zencaster versus Riverside and like where do I do it. So there's that. This was 4 pages as well. I ended up using the last 2 pages to start planning out what a podcast cover could look like. And then, but I just wanted the 4 pages just to have like overflow if needed. So no pressure in my mind about the fact that there's like 2 blank pages. And then I got into January 2024. So as you can tell, this is really basic to start off with. It's really just my cover page is just some of the old, same paper that I use for like the document the moment spread with some flowers around it. Really like cheap and cherries, really simple. Realistically, I think what happened is I did my whole setup that by the time I got into like setting up in very late December, so January, I was like something nice and easy, which is very definitely reflected throughout. Like it is super simple, super easy spread that I did. Essentially it is my weeklies, because we jump right into them. Essentially it's just that same calendar that I had before with the stamp, and I just was focusing on highlighting each week that we were currently in. I have a quote for each week. So for the first week, there are far better things ahead than any we leave behind. At a note section, my week spread was over like the first page and a Dutch door right here with next week underneath it. The flower stickers make kind of like a comeback as well. And then when you flip to the other side of that Dutch door, I have my to-do list create highlights, as well as just, this was like a posting schedule. So what I had posted each day online. So I don't hate it. I did do it 4 times. I've kind of spoken about this before, but I like to set up my weeklies fully from start to finish. But yeah, essentially that was it. You know, my highlights, I talk about my birthday, kind of like stuff like that. But there's that. And then at the end, I have my content page. So scheduled content to create. You'll see in later spreads, this actually kind of like gets fully rearranged. I don't love like having the title page and then jumping straight into the month. So for February, I had a little bit of more bandwidth. Clearly, I had time to think about what exactly I was going to do, and a lot more time and energy after setting up, after not doing like a full 60-page setup before jumping into this. So for February, this is actually one of my favorite spreads that I did. It really was the time that I like forced myself to like stretch my creativity muscle. So February has a lot of like envelopes that I created through it. So essentially like they pop up, and there's like little love notes written inside. This one's just like squiggles on a piece of paper. Same with this one here. And then I have my big envelope that says "You are great" when you open it up. Calendar, obviously, and these heart stickers that I found a while ago. Then I have my month at a glance. God's kind of changed a little bit. So the calendar, focus 3 things next month, which I didn't have in my January setup. This was something that I was doing way back in like my 2022, 2023 setups. And I realized in January that like I missed it and I needed to bring it back almost every month. I have my section for a brain dump, which flipping through this, you're going to notice a lot of my brain dumps are actually empty. And the reason why is because sometimes I don't actually have anything to write in them, but I do like to include them so that if I have something that pops into my head, I could write it. I could still like jot it down. So yeah, a lot of my brain dumps you're going to see are like, do not have anything in them as we flip through. February was the first month that I introduced the work tracker, mainly because I wanted to see like where my energy is going throughout the week and why I'm not able to get some things done. So I popped that work tracker in there. As you can see, I only worked on the podcast 3 days, which I wanted to change, stuff like that. I started introducing the habit spread as well. So throughout you see a lot of like paper being used. This was all paper that I also got at the paper store. So I opted to go for a pink and a red. And essentially just like cut out these little strips. They were like 7 by 1 to highlight like each habit. So I had my daily habits and then I also had my weekly habits that I was focusing on. And then we got into the 14 days of self-care. So, you know, you're probably noticing that there's a theme with envelopes throughout. And it really was because I knew I wanted to do my 14 days of self-care that I then kind of like took that idea and expanded it out into the rest of the journal. I couldn't find a sheet of paper that was big enough for this. So I actually just ended up using an envelope. So this is a very small envelope that I like tucked and glued in there to make my 14 days of self-care coming out there like a letter. And then this is a spread that took me forever to complete, but I actually really love it. So through February, I posted 14 things that you could do for self-care. So for example, day 11 was do something you love. And I had a video that corresponded with it when we posted it. Day 3, celebrate a win. Things like that. Call a friend. But yeah, each of them have a different like thing that you could do for the 14 days. And it was just kind of like really fun for me to think of, really fun of me to execute, and also really kind of forced me to figure out how exactly I was going to plan this out and what it was going to do. I honestly think I spent about 4 to 6 hours before I even got into filming, like really trying to figure this out. And all these envelopes like I cut and like glued together myself. So these weren't pre-made envelopes. I actually made kind of every single one of them and then had to like cut out the paper to write the notes in on everything. Like it was an undertaking for sure, but I love it. Then I just had scheduled content to create for February. Content to create for me is very much like things that I'm thinking of doing. If I manage to, some of them are like, I'm like, you need to do this. So like my January books recap in February, I need to create that. But some of it is just kind of like whatever. And then I have a different setup here for my spread. So I have my calendar for my weekly. I have my, I have like a regular calendar underneath it. Then I have the week overview. So these ones here, I really am focusing on just putting like things that I need to do. Appointments, stuff like that. It goes here, workouts. As you can see, you start seeing some of that color coding a little bit more here. For example, I was going to the TO stationery show, so that was a social event. It was red for me, but I also had a facial, so that's written in purple. I had an exercise class I was going to on the Sunday morning. An assignment due for school, stuff like that there. And I guess some of this is also color coded like in this section. I have habits that I added into the spread, things to create notes next week. I was considering going to see Book of Mormon, and then things that I was doing throughout the month as well. So yeah, so that essentially just, and then for my habits, like I also made them into hearts as well. So that essentially is it. As I was saying here, like this didn't go into my brain dump spread, but I was looking at Premiere Pro, Audition, Illustrator, and InDesign, and like what you need for a computer. This is when I first started like really thinking about what computer I was going to get. And then things that I had to tackle next week. Like I was like, you need to go to TELUS about my phone, stuff like that. I also have like information here. I also wanted to reach 100 subscribers. So I actually do put like stickers into my book, or like photos, if it is something that is like big enough for me to feel that I do it. So hitting 100 subscribers was something I wanted to do in the first 3 months of the year. So we tackled that goal. We stuck a picture there. And essentially that was it for February. For March, I opted to use these stickers again that I found. I find that sometimes if I do like a really intense spread, my next month's spread is like stickers. I'm like, give me something easy. March was the different girls kind of like going through different daily life tasks. It is so hard for me to find stickers that are non-white like people. Every single sticker that they're like, oh, we're gonna have stickers for like back to school or collegiate or like, you know, preppy weekend, stuff like that, relaxing at home. And it is always someone who is like white, and it never looks like me. And I don't use the stickers because it's hard for me to like, they're beautiful stickers, but it's really, really hard for me to think about like putting a picture of a sticker of someone like sitting at a coffee shop into my journal, because that's not me. I don't look like that at all, obviously. So I was really excited to get the opportunity to use this set of stickers. They're from a company called The Wednesday Co. And you'll see them throughout the stickers throughout the entire spread, and I absolutely like adore them. But the problem is that shipping to Canada for them are so expensive. Like a sticker sheet will be like $3, $5, and to ship it to Canada, the shipping costs are like $57, $100 sometimes. So it's just like not worth it for me to do like a massive order of the stickers. But I do know that they're coming to a stationery show in October, so my plan is actually to buy the stickers there and like stock up, like every sheet give me 5 essentially, so that I can have enough there. And then I have my month at a glance, focus, 3 things to do next month. I started introducing like this little Dutch door here for habits. My brain dump, obviously you could see I did use it a little bit about in this month. You have another one of those stickers here. This one was just kind of like, I'm pretty sure it was like weekend activities or like errands and stuff like that. So she's just running off with doing her errand. I have my content to create, which again has a Dutch door for my calendar. So I actually decided to start introducing a calendar into my spread. And then color coding, because you know I love color coding, what I posted on each day. So at a glance I could be like, oh, this is what happened, instead of just my typed out page. And then miscellaneous stuff was here. And then I got into the weeklies. So very similar concept to February. I did kind of like declutter it a little bit. I took the notes section out, I think it was over here before, and put it down here. Habits definitely came out as well. And then I just put my work tracker underneath at the bottom, because I did like it from my previous one, but I didn't always want to be like flipping back and forth. And then because I took habits out of here, with my habit spread here and with the calendars, I really was just like highlighting the days that I hit the things that I was tracking. So yeah, so I really liked it there. And then I got into, you know, this girl was really cute as well. I love the blonde. But yeah. And then I got into spring. So I had my spring reading list. Again, I read 4 out of the 6 books. Very Bad Company is actually like so close to being at the top of my bullet journal, of my list to read, sorry, of my TBR. I kept this one a little bit simple as well. So this is just like a washi tape that I used here, and then my spring reading list, I just wrote it on in that light blue mild liner. So that was a really simple, fun spread for me to pick up, like super easy. And then I got into my spring bucket list. So I did make the decision for spring to go from it being just like a checklist to actually including pictures of all the things that I did with Polaroids. As you can tell, I only did 2 of the 7 things that I said I was going to do. I spent a lot of this time like very, very sick. March, April, May especially, like I was unwell. So as much as I was like, oh, I'm gonna go for a bike ride along the waterfront, again, I was not in a place where I could. But essentially I still used that washi and brought it in to it. My whole idea was each one goes like try a new restaurant. Like I'd put the sticker, the Polaroid over top of it essentially, and then write down on the Polaroid what what it was that I was doing. And then as the whole page was covered in, so for example here, like you'd see the flower kind of like peeking out between the pages. I do really like the spread. I probably will like continue doing something very similar to this. I just know that for spring, like it was not happening for me. But that's okay. And you know what, you can kind of say that I did explore a new neighborhood. I did go to Leslieville a lot in spring as well, which is a new neighborhood for me. I had my Q2 content, nothing really exciting there. And then I got into April. And I also really like this spread. This was the first time I brought the Chiyogami paper back, and I really challenged myself to just kind of like do the most, I guess you could say. I loved it with the cherry blossoms and everything else. I also live really close to where there's cherry blossoms in Toronto, and I've never actually seen them, even though I've lived here for like years. So I saw this paper, fell in love with it, and then was like, wait a minute, what if you cover the entire page? And then I was like, what if you cover the entire page and make sure that it looks like it's one? So obviously there's like the midline of the page right here of the journal. But I painstakingly made sure that it lined up so that when it's open, it potentially, like it's just one cohesive thing and the patterns aren't askew. And then I have April here, which I cut out. The gold behind it is paper from a leftover scrap from my 2024 cover. And then the April is just leftover pink paper from my February spread, which I guess is a testament to like, keep your paper, guys. You never know when you're going to use it again, or you need to have it on hand. And essentially I was only going to do the pink, but when I put it on, it didn't like pop. So then I started introducing the gold as well. Definitely took a lot of patience with the X-Acto knife. I think this page alone took me about like an hour to maybe an hour and a half to set up, just because it was like so much work to get done. And then I got into my April spread. So I had like focus 3 things to do and next month, just with that paper again. And then I just had my calendar on this side with my month. Brought the paper back again just for 1 page this time, with a quote. I have my habits on these calendars that I cut out of paper and then like kind of like posted them in, and then I was just circling when I like tackled the thing, and that's just on a little Dutch door there. And then my brain dump, where obviously I'm still on the new computer spread. I think every time I have written in a brain dump in this journal, it's about a computer and specs for a computer, honestly. But this is actually just like the back of an envelope that I cut to put in here, of a colored envelope, obviously, because it's pink. My scheduled content for my calendar, I chose to use the Chiyogami paper just to tie that element back in a little bit, because, you know, it shows up on just about every single page. But I knew that I didn't want to like put it here right, so I just wrote it, covered my little Dutch door with it, and then stuck a calendar that I drew on a scrap piece of Bujo paper on, and then put it there. I go back to the podcast a little bit with a couple of things that I was tackling and working through with it. And then we go into April. So this one, these individual spreads, like they were super simple. It's very similar, as you can tell, to what I set up for March, what I set up for February, with the whole idea of like the calendar and the week on one side, a work tracker to do, create notes, and then everything else. So this is not like a new spread that I'm bringing in at all. The only thing that's really different is how I use the paper to identify like each of the 7 days of the week, kind of as like a background. I have the Chiogami paper laid out behind the like the title as well, just to kind of like do that, and then I just have everything else there. So yeah, so this was not really like a overwhelmingly busy spread or anything like that. And then we get into May. So May, I was like determined that I kind of wanted to do something different for May, honestly, because I did do 3 months that felt very similar to me, even though they like visually looked different. So for May, I started with, it's kind of like a paper theme for it. So I had craft paper that I just used to create my like header here. This is just old scraps from a book that I used, just to kind of like rip and make on the edges. And you start seeing that kind of like throughout as well. So I have my regular page just on one page this time with my calendar focus, 3 things to do in next month. I did actually kind of like how I had this calendar, because sometimes it's like I don't have a lot of things going on, but as you can see, I really only had like 5 things that I needed to like pinpoint for the year. So it was nice just to have the 5 there and it'd be easy, as opposed to having to like itemize. So I have like all 31 days and I only have like 5 things that I actually write down. For habits, I brought my habit spread back out onto the paper and just drew like calendars for each month and filled in when I did it. And as you can tell, this is a very like brown, earthy theme. So even like when I pulled from mild liners and stuff like that, I always was going for something that fell in those like categories. My content spread is 1 page. The calendar is off a Dutch door now. And then for create, I didn't want to just write a list, because for weeks I've just been writing lists and it's been so boring. So essentially I broke it down into like the different areas that I was doing to fill out in. Yeah, and then I have get into my weekly. So funnily enough, this actually changed, because I wrote this week I'm grateful for and then knew immediately that I was not going to be filling out that spread. That is not me. But essentially, let's flip to the next one where it's a little bit more accurate. I changed it into a work tracker. So for my spread, I set up the the days of the week across the top of the page. Each page has some paper in the corner, obviously, and then it has the craft paper with the calendar on it. Days of the week with like everything else. I quickly realized that this is actually too small for me. I hated this spread. I hated that they were there. It just did not work for me. I had notes on the side of things that I was doing, my to-do list. The work tracker went on the Dutch door that I kind of changed there. So, and I've started itemizing like specifically what it was that I worked on. Back page had my content calendar, so what I was posting or posted on certain days, and then I had my create page and next week. So I didn't completely hate this setup, honestly. Like I actually really like it. My only thing was I just could not do those boxes at the top. It was a little bit too small / like not really working for me. Like it actually like drove me insane having it set up like that. But yeah, May was pretty easy. I have this blank page here and I actually like for the life of me cannot figure out why I had a blank page between May and June. I don't know if I was like planning to do something there or go back. I don't know. It just clearly never. It's just a blank page in the middle of my book. And then we got into June. So June, I decided to go with like a fruit theme. I actually saw this spread online and I really, really liked it. And this is like maybe one of like my second favorite themes in this book, because it is very like fruity and very bright and visually appealing, I find. So I really liked how the calendar is over the 2 pages. I had personal and other goals. At the time I have been listening to Cowboy Carter like incessantly, and I really like ain't got time to waste. I got art to make from 16 Carriages like really stuck out of my head. So you have that quote there. I have these stickers here. I picked these up at a different like a gift shop in my city, and the beauty of them is like they look as if they're just like they're almost 3D. So they are just like flat stickers, but there's shading and stuff around them to look as if like you have shadows and stuff like that. And then I decided to also include a currently section. So currently what I was reading, watching, eating, listening to, stuff like that. I really liked it. My month at a glance also, there's tons of fruits you're gonna see in this theme, but my month at a glance all fit on one page with like everything there. Things that I did, like I went to go see the Celine Dion movie, stuff like that. My focus was to have fun in the month of June, which I definitely did. I have my habits are all listed here as well. So I realized that I actually prefer to have them at the front of my journal instead of having them as part of a weekly spread. I just kind of like don't really fill it out or don't really think about it. June, you see, I worked out a lot because my spin studio was actually doing a challenge during that time. So I tackled the challenge there. But then I also had like different color coordinated things for each one. For each of my fruits. I just really enjoyed it. I have my content plan. So kind of similar to my previous one, I did kind of a box for everything and then a list underneath each one instead of having it like sectioned out like I did before. I took those like 3 pages that I had and kind of just condensed it down into 2. And then for content to create, same idea as my previous month, I did start breaking it down, or I kept breaking it down, I should say, into the individual things that I was focusing on. And then my weekly, because I knew I wanted to try having the box for like each day again. So I brought that back with the different, like for 7 days of the week, Monday through Sunday, what I'm doing. So I know like I'm going to a spin class, I'm going to, I have work, I haven't had an interview at one point in there as well. I have my next week and then my notes as well. So there's that. I have my content calendar, like what I posted for the week, create and tasks all went on this other page. And each week in this journal in this month is actually a different theme. So June was like the peaches, sorry, the first week of June was peaches. I had the kiwi, so it was all very green. July had oranges. Just going back here, I started, some of my notes actually have like things how I was feeling. So I was not feeling good on this day. But then when you flip, for this one, I can see that I received an ARC of a book from Penguin Random House. And I have here, like, they know who I am, eek. I remember this like so vividly. It actually was the Tuesday that had happened on. And I remember I went to a spin class and I went to get my nails done. And then on my way home, there was like, oh, there's a package from you. So I went and to get my mail, and it was an advanced reader copy of a book from Penguin Random House. And when I tell you, I was like, how? Like, seriously? I was so excited. It was just such a like a weird experience for me. I was like, a publishing house knows who you are. The third week was oranges. So you have a lot of that like clementines and orange theme going on there. My notes, I was just brain dumping. Oh, I was planning out like what movies I could potentially see at TIFF with my membership and like what days to go and do that. And then the final week was strawberries as well. So back to red. So yeah, so that essentially is my year setup. Like I said, I fit quite a lot into this little book. I absolutely love it. I do think she is like nice and thick and chunky. But yeah, that's everything that I accomplished in January to June 2024. I do think it is interesting to see how it has evolved from January through to June, and also looking back now, like thinking of what my like September setup is or my August setup. I'm like, yeah, you've grown, so much growth and changes in the way that I would do things, but definitely been great. So if you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I am Adele Ashley. I share everything from bullet journaling to vlogs, books, everything in between on my channel. Until next time, have a great day.